Hey, I'm Ryan Hidalgo, and this is Hidalgo News Review. So I'm going to talk about Andrew Yang today. Right now, he's placing 6th nationally, according to the Real Clear Politics national average, which is he's about 3.5%, trailing Pete Buttigieg and Kamala Harris, but not by much, but pretty distant away from the front runners, Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie Sanders. He is beating Kamala Harris in at least one poll in California, which is Kamala Harris's home state. Yang is sort of gaining this following. They call themselves the Yang Gang, based off his cornerstone issue, which I will get to in a moment. He did gain an early support group within the alt-right, which is very unusual, and I think it had something to do with Andrew Yang tweeting out sort of a lamentation of white deaths exceeding white births, right? I think Yang was just trying to make a larger point about substance abuse. Had nothing to do with this Richard Spencer mentality of white supremacy, but it did get Richard Spencer's attention, and he now supports Andrew Yang, Spencer being the neo-Nazi. Just to make it clear, Yang's message has nothing to do with neo-Nazism. It's just it's very unfortunate that sometimes you'll get endorsements from people that are terrible. I remember when Ilhan Omar was making her criticisms of Israel, and she gained the support of David Duke. You know, it's unfortunate that getting those kinds of endorsements is not always a reflection on that political figure, whether it's Yang or Ilhan Omar. As far as Andrew Yang's career, he always calls himself. He always says that he was an unhappy attorney, for the time that he was a lawyer, which was very brief. And then he got into a startup relating to test preparations. And then from 2011 to 2017, he was involved in helping startup companies in the Midwest. And it was at this time that he developed sort of this passion for universal basic income, which he wrote a book on. Now, I'm going to show you a really quick clip, and I want you to try to figure out what exactly Andrew Yang is proposing.
Entrepreneur Andrew Yang.
In America today, everything revolves around the almighty dollar. Our schools, our hospitals, our media, even our government. It's why we don't trust our institutions anymore. We have to get our country working for us again instead of the other way around. We have to see ourselves as the owners and shareholders of this democracy rather than inputs into a giant machine. When you donate money to a presidential campaign, what happens? The politician spends the money on TV ads and consultants, and you hope it works out. It's time to trust ourselves more than our politicians. That's why I'm going to do something unprecedented tonight. My campaign will now give a freedom dividend of $1,000 a month for an entire year to 10 American families, someone watching this at home right now. If you believe that you can solve your own problems better than any politician, go to yang2020.com and tell us how $1,000 a month will help you do just that. This is how we will get our country working for us again, the American people.
Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
It's original, I'll give you that. The American people are divided.
So I know this is an unfortunate way to begin this discussion, but I did want to talk about Yang's opening statement, which was awful, as you just saw, or I believe it was awful. I know some progressive media was upset with how candidates like Klobuchar and Harris and Buttigieg were laughing at him, making fun of him on stage, but I'm sorry, I'm not... It was awful. Like Jimmy Kimmel had joked that it sounded like a radio show contest, which is exactly how I felt upon hearing that. In fact, I buried my face into my hands. I just thought it was absolutely silly. In fact, I didn't know he was talking about universal basic income. And I know the fact that he mentioned freedom dividends should have given it away, but or that he mentioned the figure $1,000. But for me, I'm sorry you could call me dense, but it didn't, because I had totally forgotten that he had been referring to universal basic income as a freedom dividend. That's his own lingo. And it's not a good idea to just expect people to understand what you're saying when you say freedom dividend. And the fact that he mentioned the figure $1,000 was not enough clarification, because in his context, it made no sense. It sounded specifically like he was talking about money designated for campaign contributions specifically, because he had made this dichotomy between, or he had stated the idea of being a shareholder to democracy when he mentioned $1,000. So it didn't make sense to me that he was referring to UBI, because UBI is so much more than that. Also, within that, he made this comparison between, do you trust yourself or do you trust the government? Again, I was not getting it, that he was talking about UBI. In fact, that language worried me. But he did state, just to reiterate, he stated, my campaign will now give a freedom dividend of $1,000 a month for an entire year to 10 families. Someone watching this at home right now, if you believe that you can solve your own problems better than any politician, go to yang2020.com and tell us how $1,000 a month will help you do just that. This is how we save our country. Get our country working for us again, the American people. Okay, you can see there how he did create that dichotomy between you helping yourself or the government helping you. And I don't think that's helpful for understanding UBI. I know that's a lot of people's interpretation of universal basic income, and that's why people like Milton Friedman supported it, because the idea of minimalizing government's role in terms of social programs, and for that strictly, right, that's why he supported it. And when Yang chooses that phrasing, it's like he's echoing Milton Friedman's sentiment. But then again, Yang states that he supports things like Medicare for All, which would be broadening government's role in the health insurance industry. Now, I notice a lot of Yang's followers are also echoing this, that they support Medicare for All, which Yang states he supports. But I'm sorry, unfortunately, like many of the candidates, Yang does not mean Medicare for all in its literal sense. When you hear Medicare for All, you might think Medicare, as it is currently implemented in the United States, for all. Now, I know that's a bit of a stretch, right, to think that? No, not really. A lot of people are putting forward what is a public option, which is a mix of private insurance and government's role, which is not Medicare for all. And that's what Yang's plan reflects. And I'm going to touch on that in another video. I'm not going to get into that now. I'm going to stay on topic. But I will state that Yang, in proposing this sort of radio show contest thing, this experiment, which I don't want to be too hard on, all right? It makes sense to use the debate as a platform to launch this experiment, right? That way more eyes and more media can cover this experiment, right? But the thing is, you got to really tailor your message. It wasn't clear he was talking about universal basic income. He did such a good job at defining universal basic income in the first debate, which I'll play that clip in a moment. And he should have more carefully tailored his remarks to state that this was an experiment to demonstrate UBI's effectiveness, instead of all this language that seemed to sort of was designed to promote a visceral reaction, right? By stirring our contempt for government, will therefore support this proposal. And it just, the more I read over that transcript over and over and over, I thought, how many people at home really understood what he was saying, except for people that are already intimately familiar with Andrew Yang's policies. Don't just say freedom dividend, say what it is, $1,000 a month. So this proposal of Yang's, it ran into some legal issues. There are competing legal philosophies right now, and Vox sort of outlined them. One, if it's for personal use, if this $1,000 is regarded as personal use, then it's illegal. If it's regarded as advertising purposes, then it's legal. And to summarize the personal use interpretation, Aaron Chlopik, director of campaign finance strategy for the Campaign Legal Center and former acting associate counsel at the FEC, he stated to Vox that the pilot can't count as advertising because there is no requirement that recipients contribute to Yang's candidacy. To get the money, they do not have to tweet or post or in any way advertise for Yang. They don't have to tell anyone they are receiving the money at all. Although the random drawings rules do state recipients must allow the campaign to use recipients' images, royalty-free, and promotional materials. Now, the argument that states that it should be legal and that it's for advertising purposes goes as such that Rick Hasen, a UC Irvine professor of law and political science, states, or he tweeted that as long as no restrictions are placed on who can get the money, the pilot ought to count as a creative form of campaign advertising. And to make matters even more complicated, the Vox article continues that this is up to the FEC how to rule and how to interpret the campaign financing law, but that the agency's rules state that no meetings can be conducted without at least 4 commissioners present. FEC Vice Chairman Matthew Peterson resigned in August, leaving the agency with just 3 commissioners. The agency was last fully staffed with 6 commissioners in 2017. The 3 commissioners remaining have all completed their terms. Chairwoman Ellen Weintraub's term expired in 2007, but are serving until they can be replaced. In other words, they are toothless. They're not in a position to interpret the legality of what Yang is doing. But there was an entrepreneur, Alexis Ohanian Sr. on Twitter that stated, "Hey, Andrew Yang, I like this idea so much, I'll do it personally for those 10 people if you can't. We talk about the future of AI often at Initialized. Our nation needs to start exploring ways to adapt to the massive automation shift that's already happening." And Yang replied that he thought, or that he would call him soon. So, and that is the route that Yang should go to avoid any legal complications. But before I go any further, let me show you a good pitch from Andrew Yang from the June debate talking about universal basic income and what it is.
Oh, so it's difficult to do if you have companies like Amazon, trillion-dollar tech companies paying literally zero in taxes while they're closing 30% of our stores. Now, we need to put the American people in position to benefit from all these innovations in other parts of the economy. And if we had a value-added tax at even half the European level, it would generate over $800 billion in new revenue, which combined with the money in our hands, it would be the trickle-up economy from our people, families, and communities up. We would spend the money and it would circulate through our regional economies and neighborhoods, creating millions of jobs, making our families stronger and healthier. We'd save money on things like incarceration, homelessness services, emergency room health care, and just the value gains from having a stronger, healthier, mentally healthier population would increase GDP by $700 billion. This is the move that we have to make, particularly as technology is now automating away millions of American jobs. It's why Donald Trump is our president today, that we automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs in Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And we're about to do the same thing to millions of retail jobs, call center jobs, fast food jobs, truck driving jobs, and on and on through the economy.
Mr. Ryan, if I get you understand a little bit better, so you're saying $1,000 a month for everyone over 18, but a value-added tax, so you can spend that $1,000 on value-added tax?
Well, the value-added tax would end up, you'd still be increasing the buying power of the bottom 94% of Americans. You have to spend a lot of money for a mild value-added tax to eat up $12,000 a year per individual. So for the average family with 2 or 3 adults, it'd be $24,000 to $36,000 a year.
Okay, Congressman Swalwell.
So the moderator noted that the universal basic income, as Yang has it designed, is going to cost $3.2 trillion. Again, the value added tax that Yang is proposing to pay for this is going to be $800 billion a year. But notice within Yang's description, he didn't use the word UBI once, but it was crystal clear what he was talking about. It was eloquent, and he needs to bring that same eloquency to the table when pushing for universal basic income. Not that I am picking a position, because there's a lot of complications with Yang's proposal. But that was beautiful. Repeat that. It's that simple. Stop appealing to people's visceral hatred of government to push what you're trying to push, because it's very unhelpful, especially when progressives are fighting for expanding government in healthcare, right? And making sure that people have accessible healthcare. Hey guys, I hope you liked this video. Make sure, if you did, to click like down below and subscribe to this channel. And remember to click the bell. That way you'll get a notification whenever a new video is uploaded. Share this video with whoever you feel might find it valuable. And just remember, the more likes this video gets, the more views, and the more subscriptions, the more this channel can thrive and grow. Thank you.